Year 5, hope you're all okay. Welcome to today's English. Today we are going to be continuing with our learning all about our new class text, Alice in Wonderland. Now, hopefully, if some of you have been to pick up your books this morning, you should be lucky enough to have your text in front of you for today's lesson. Okay, if you don't because you haven't been to pick up your text yet, that is okay, but please make sure that you arrange a time with us to come and pick up your text because it's going to be really, really important that you have it with you at home as well so you can follow along. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today then, I'm just going to share screen. Is we're going to start to have a little think about the vocabulary that is used in Alice in Wonderland. And the reason why we are doing this is so that we can write in a similar style to Lewis Carroll himself. Now, Lewis Carroll wrote this book quite a long time ago, okay, so the vocabulary is quite different. It's quite formal and it's quite old-fashioned. In order for us to kind of replicate that in our own style, in our own writing and kind of write in our own old-fashioned style, we're going to have to learn some new vocabulary or kind of gain more understanding of some vocabulary so that we can use it in our own writing too. That's really going to kind of change our writing and make it really fit and make it similar to the style of Lewis Carroll. So by the end of the week, we'll have this new vocabulary that we can use in our writing. Okay, so what are we doing today? We're exploring vocabulary from our class text. How? By practicing new learning. And why? So we can write sentences in a similar style to Alice in Wonderland. Still holding my book up. Here we go. Perfect. So what we're going to do first then is we're going to have a bit of a rewind back to yesterday and we're going to have a look at the first chapter of our text, Alice in Wonderland. Okay, now if you have your book at home, you can do this independently. You can go and have a look at the first chapter of your book and you can be picking out those words or phrases that are quite unfamiliar or quite old-fashioned to you. If you don't have your book at home, I'm going to read some bits of our first chapter so you can be listening along at home and noting down any bits that sound unfamiliar. So in order to do this, you're going to need paper and a pen, or paper and a pencil, and you're also going to need either your book or you're going to need to have your ears turned on so that you can listen to me reading the first chapter. I'm not going to read all of it, I'm just going to read some kind of snippets of it. Okay, so let's start then. Even if you've got your book at home, I'm just going to show you first me finding a word that I think I want to write down because I'm not that confident with how I would use this in my writing. So Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what was the use of a book for Alice without pictures or conversations? I'm happy with that first, but there's no kind of words or phrases that are kind of a bit different or I'm a bit unfamiliar with, so I'm happy. She was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies. Okay, so here I've got she was considering in her own mind. And that word, considering, I do recognise it, but thinking to myself, would I be confident to use it in that way in my writing? Okay, maybe not. So I'm going to write that word down, considering. Okay, so I'm picking out that language that probably I wouldn't be that confident to use in my writing, not necessarily because I don't know what it means, okay, but because I'm not sure how to use it in that way. Okay, what we're going to do now then is I'm going to read a few little bits of the book. If you have got your own book, you're more than welcome to skip this part and you can read your own chapter 1, just chapter 1 for now, and you can pick out any of that key vocabulary that you find a little bit unfamiliar. Please don't worry about getting every single word down. It's not about that. It's just about kind of starting to think about which words we don't understand. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to read a little bit of our first chapter. I'm not going to read it all, and I'm kind of going to jump around a little bit just so you can hear kind of all of that kind of rich vocabulary that Lewis Carroll has used, okay? So I don't want you to kind of get too wrapped up in the story because otherwise then you might get a little bit confused. I'm just going to read kind of key parts and I want you to listen to that key vocabulary that you might be a little bit uncertain of. So let's make a start. There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did Alice think it so very much out of the way to hear the rabbit say to itself, oh dear, I shall be too late. When she thought it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered about this, but at the time it all seemed quite natural. Okay, so remembering if you hear any of those words that you think are a bit unfamiliar or you wouldn't be very confident using in your writing, just write them down so that you have a little record of them. Okay, let's have a look for our next bit then. Okay, this time then Alice is thinking about reaching the other side of the world because she's fallen so far through the earth. So please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And she tried to curtsy as she spoke. Fancy curtsying as you're falling through the air. Do you think you could manage it? What an ignorant little girl she'll think of me. No, it will never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. Okay, so perhaps there you might have heard some words that are a little bit unfamiliar. Let's try another bit. Okay, remembering you can pause at any time and jot down your words as you hear them. So, suddenly she came upon a little three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny golden key, and Alice's first thought was that it might belong to one of the doors of the hall. But alas, either the doors were too large or the key was too small, but at any rate, it would not open any of them. Okay, I'm wondering if you might have heard any words there that might have been a little bit unfamiliar that you might have wanted to write down. I'm just going to read a little bit more, remembering to pick out those words if you notice that they're a bit unfamiliar. In this bit then, Alice has just realised that she can't now reach the key. So she says, "Come on, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she very seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her own eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she was playing against herself, for this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. Okay, so that's all I'm going to read because obviously I can't read the whole chapter because we'll be here for a very long time. But hopefully, whether you had the book yourself at home and you were looking at the chapter yourself, or you were listening to me read and you were hearing those keywords, hopefully you've picked out a few words that are a little bit unfamiliar and maybe are a bit kind of old-fashioned. So these are a few that I picked out from the first chapter. Okay, so we've got words like considering. Alas was definitely one that I kind of knew what it meant, but not really. I wouldn't feel confident to use it in my own writing. Seldom, longed, as in she longed to get out into the garden. It occurred to her, okay, as in a thought kind of, she kind of realised something. Dozing, curious, scolded, okay, they're all words that, yes, I do recognise them and yes, I've seen them before, but would I feel really confident to write a sentence using some of these words? Maybe not. Okay, which is why it's really important that we have a go at kind of practicing using them in context, which means practicing using them in sentences. So just to get us warmed up then, I have chosen a few of our words. I've chosen 5 of them, and I've also given you kind of like the modern kind of meanings or synonyms, which means kind of words or phrases that mean the same thing. Can you have a go at matching these words down here to these words down the side here? Okay, pause the video and then you can unpause when you've had a go. Wonderful stuff. Right, hopefully then you've had a go at that. Let's go through the answers then. So some of these you might have been able to do just by trial and error. So having a look at the list, which one can it be, which one can't it be. Some of these you might have had to use another method, like you might have had to ask an adult, or you might have maybe used the internet. Okay, so the first one is scolded. Now this isn't a word that we would use very often in kind of modern day. If you were to scold someone, that would mean that you were to tell them off. So if you are scolded, you are told off. Now this one, longed. But again, we probably wouldn't say this kind of in 2021. We probably wouldn't say I longed to go outside for playtime. Okay, but Alice did say this about going out into the garden. Okay, she longed, she wanted to. Alas, it's kind of like an exclamation. Alas, okay, it kind of means oh dear. Okay, it's a bit of a negative exclamation. It's almost like a oh dear. We can't now reach the table because we've shrunk too small. Okay. Again, a really kind of odd. I like this word. I might start using it in everyday to-day life. Alas. Seldom means rarely or never. Okay, so I think it said something about Alice seldom followed her own advice, which means she almost never actually followed the advice that she gave. And then the last one was considering. Okay, so if you are considering something, you are thinking, oh, that was a dodgy line, you are thinking about it. Okay, you're kind of weighing up your options. Okay, so this is just some of our vocabulary that I kind of picked out of the first chapter that we might want to kind of slot into our sentences by the end of the week to kind of give it that kind of old-fashioned tone, the old-fashioned style that Lewis Carroll used when he was writing Alice in Wonderland. Wonderful. Here then, just to kind of get us thinking on a slightly deeper level, I have given you 3 sentences, and in these sentences there are 3 gaps. Okay, I've also given you some words which might go in the sentences. Now you have got 5 words and you've only got 3 sentences, which tells me you're not going to be using all of the words. Can you have a go then, now that we kind of know the meaning of these words and we've had a little look at their modern meaning, which words would go in which sentence? Pause the video now and then have a go to see if you can work it out. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one then. She could no longer reach the key. Now, I could try all the words out here. I could say long, she could no longer reach the key. No, it doesn't make sense. Considered, she could no longer reach the key. No, it doesn't really make sense. All of these words are verbs, so that's not going to make sense. Alas, however, is an exclamation word, okay? Alas, she could no longer reach the key. So that word is going to work. Let's see how good I am at doing my writing with my... Oh, it's not the prettiest, but we did it. Alas, she could no longer reach the key. She searched for an exit as she, her next move. What was she doing about her next move? Did she scold her first move? Did she tell her first move off? Not going to be that. Did she longed her first move? Well, that doesn't really make sense because longed means like wanted, okay? So I think it's going to be this word considered. She searched for an exit as she considered. I'm not going to have room, am I? Okay. Considered. Still trying to keep my writing joined up. Oh, that looks a bit messy. Considered her next move. Okay. She searched for her exit as she considered, as she thought about her next move. Wonderful. Last one then. It to her that no one had even seen her fall down the hole. Okay, so which word then? So it's not going to be this one, because we use that one. It's not going to be this one, because we use that one. Okay, which word do we think is going to go in our gap? To her that no one had even seen her fall down the hole. Now, thinking about what these words mean, this one means like wanted to. So it want to her that no one had even seen her fall down the hole. That doesn't make sense. This one means told off. It told off to her that no one had even seen her fall down the hole. Again, no, don't really think it's going to be that one. It occurred to her. Now, we talked about this word occurred and the fact it means kind of if something occurs to you, then you realise, you think about something. Okay, so it occurred to her kind of means the same as she realised. Does that fit in the sentence? She realised that no one had seen her fall down the hole. Yes. Okay, so it occurred to her works in this sentence. Okay, and you can hear how by using that phrase, it occurred to her, rather than she realised, changes the tone a little bit, makes it fit better with our story, Alice in Wonderland. Okay, so well done if you chose the right words to go in those gaps there. What we're going to do now then, is we're going to have a go at doing our active vocabulary practice. Now, you've seen one of these sheets before, although it was quite a while ago. Okay, so today we're going to revisit this and have a go at completing our active vocabulary sheet. So by the end, we'll have 6 new words that we're quite comfortable with using in a sentence. Okay, so the idea is for each word, you are going to find what type of word it is, the definition, then you're going to write it in a sentence, then you are going to draw a picture to help you kind of remember what the word means. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit if I can. I've already done curious for you. So underneath curious, I've worked out what word class is curious. Well, curious is an adjective because it's a description word. If I was describing somebody, I might say the curious girl. I'm using that adjective curious to describe the girl. Okay, then I've had a little think about what it means. Now, if you're a bit like me, sometimes you might know what a word means in your head, but you might really struggle to kind of explain what it means sometimes. Okay, so you might want to use a dictionary or even the internet, if you don't have a dictionary at home, to help you kind of come up with a definition of the word. Okay, I'm just going to show you an example though, just because sometimes it's not always the best to just copy the definition. Okay, it's best to kind of write the definition in our own words. I'm going to show you an example. Okay, so here then, I have searched for the definition of the word scolded because I'm not really that confident with the word scolded in terms of what does it actually mean. Okay, but if I search for my definition, it says to remonstrate with or rebuke someone angrily. Now, those words mean even less to me than the word scold means. So there's no point in me writing that as my definition. Okay, there's two things you can do. You can either have a little think, what do you think it means? Well, I kind of know what scolded means. It kind of means to be told off. Okay, or you might, this might help. I hope it does now. For children, if you type in a child's definition, okay, it's going to give you a bit of a better definition that's more kind of pitched at you guys. Okay, and I prefer these definitions as well because they don't use as many fancy words. Okay, so for example, this one. Definition of scold, to speak in an angry or critical way to someone. Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me. So I'm going to go back to my sheet and I'm going to fill in my definition for scolded. Okay, then after you've done your word class and your definition, you're going to have a go at writing that in a sentence. So for example here, for my word curious, I've written the curious girl let her excitement get the better of her as she peered further and further down the rabbit hole. Okay, I've not just written the curious girl read a book because that doesn't really tell me that the girl is curious. I've used it kind of more accurately in a sentence to describe why the girl is curious as well. Okay, and then I've drawn a little image to kind of show what curious, well, I tell a lie, obviously I haven't drawn this. I cheated, okay, and used this little picture about to show what is curiosity. Well, she's got all these question marks coming out. She's eager to learn more. Okay, so you're going to have a go at doing this then with the next 5 words. Okay, so you're finding the word class, finding the definition, making the definition kind of make sure it means something to you, even if you're having to adjust your search a little bit, having a go at applying it in a sentence, and then drawing a picture. Okay, that is going to be everything from me today. Any problems, please let me know on Class Dojo. Please just remember when you are finding your definitions, I know I keep saying it, but don't just copy from the internet, okay? Write something that means something to you so this is really purposeful and you can have a go at using these words in your work, okay? Send us a picture once you've done so we can see. This, sorry, will be on Class Dojo. However, like I always say, if for whatever reason you can't access that, you can just draw this out onto paper, making sure you use your ruler to draw your nice straight lines. Okay, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.